Hey, good morning. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here with the 10th step, or day 10 of 14 days to getting whatever you want. Again, I'm working on losing 7 pounds by our 14-day deadline. And whatever you've selected to work on, I really encourage you to just one day at a time, do a little bit of each step of each day that we're doing and see how much that moves you toward your goal and how easy it is to achieve anything that you want if you follow this process. The goal of this 14 days is to prove to yourself that this process works. And once you've proven to yourself that this process works, nothing will stop you from using it over and over and over and over again. I will admit I am nervous about today's topic, and not because it isn't an awesome topic, but because it's got the word sex in it. And that's just my emotional baggage and beliefs from my experiences in my past and how I've grown up and been raised and indoctrinated in what I think and feel as a woman talking about the topic of the mystery of sex transmutation. Now, if it was titled The Mystery of Energy Transmutation, I would have no problem jumping in and just talking with gusto about this topic. But since it's got the word sex in it, it automatically raises red flags and triggers for me that make me nervous to talk about it. Now, why is that? Well, because of religion and society and beliefs. Now, is it my personal beliefs? Nope. So why on earth should I be nervous to talk about it? Is it because I care what other people think? Well, I care what you think, but beyond that, I don't care what you think about my opinion about sex. I mean, we all get to have our own opinion about every topic in the universe, including sex. But, you know, it just makes me nervous. It's a topic that is stretching my comfort zone to discuss, and I just want to let you know that up front, so if I'm acting kind of weird, you know, it's just because I'm a little bit nervous to discuss it. I think it's an incredible topic, and it's so true and so powerful. And I encourage you to go back in your life and think about experiences you've had and start to notice where you see yourself or where you see your own experiences in the things that we're going to discuss today. I know I did that as I reread the chapter again this morning. I'm actually using my son's book today, so this one I can write in and highlight and turn pages on, but he hasn't finished this chapter yet, so I had to stop about halfway through and just not make more highlights than he used. So I do find it fascinating what different people pull out of the same book or the same topic. And that's one thing really incredible about us as human beings. We all see and hear and take different things, the things that we need from the same information. Again, I think we discussed this a couple of days ago about how, 20 people can actually witness the same exact car accident or experience, and we all will see and experience and capture in our subconscious mind different things from that particular experience because we're all different, unique human beings, and we take from it what we bring with to that experience. So if you're a 7-year-old, you're going to experience seeing a car accident different than a 57-year-old because you've had different experiences throughout your lifetime, and that will color what you do and do not observe or see. Anyway, let's dig right in. Even though I'm nervous, I'll quit talking and we'll jump right in. This, again, is the 10th major step in achieving whatever you want, and it is titled The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. Now, I will share some of my highlights. I'm going to share the ones that this particular version of the book calls out, because I noticed that most of them are things that I've highlighted too, and some of them aren't because it's a more general phrasing of things, but I think it gives you a better understanding than things I might actually call out. The meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. So like I said, if it was called The Mystery of Energy Transformation or Transmutation, I guess it probably wouldn't have garnered as much attention, and people wouldn't have read this chapter as much or been as attracted to and interested and curious about this chapter. So actually the title's awesome. But the emotion of sex has back of it the possibility of 3 constructive potentialities. They are the perpetuation of mankind, the maintenance of health as a therapeutic agency, it has no equal, and the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. And we're going to talk about that in detail throughout the chapter. But Napoleon Hill contends, based on his study of 25,000 plus people over 25 years, and I would agree with him, that sexual energy is the major driving force of humanity. It is the major driving force of nature, all of nature, and most of nature is on autopilot and only has seasons for procreating or sexual activities and sexual energy expenditure in the physical form, whereas humans, we pretty much have open season on it, and it's kind of it's more tied to our feelings and our emotions than it is our thinking or our desire to procreate. Actually, most of the time people are having sex without the desire to procreate. Let's be honest, it's the 2000s, people. But sex transmutation is simple and easily explained. It means the switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature, to thoughts of some other form of expression. That's what transmutation means. It means to transform or change. Sex transmutation is simply and easily explained. It means, I just read this, the switching of mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. Now, I wasn't going to read that because I didn't have it highlighted, but of course it's highlighted in the book for me. Oh, it is highlighted. That means it's doubly important. And I guess the whole concept of this chapter and this lesson and this step is to understand that as human beings, we have the ability to transform one form of energy into another form of energy. And we want to take the highest vibrating, most positive forms of energy and use them to help power our success in whatever it is that we want to achieve, do, be, or have. And there's great examples in this chapter of people that have used, and he calls them highly sexed people. And it's people that have a lot of that high level, highest vibrating, generally sexual energy. And we see, and I guess I'll wait on that, but the reason it's so powerful is sexual energy is it's the highest form of energy that drives human beings to act, to take action. People will do just about anything to engage their sexual energy or to use their sexual energy. I mean, think of examples in your life of people that you've been attracted to, and you would go up and talk to a person because the urge is so strong in you to go talk and interact with that person that you'll talk to and interact with people that you would never have reached outside your comfort zone to even talk to or contact before. But that urge overcomes your fear of action and drives you to action. There's 10 different ways of stimulating your mind, 10 different mind stimuli that I'm going to read and share with you. But, of course, the first one of this is the desire for sex expression. Number 2 is love. So the desire for expressing sexual energy is even higher vibrating than the desire for love. Now, remember, love takes all shapes and forms. I mean, I love my spouse differently than I love my children, than I love my sisters, than I love my nieces, than I love my parents. There's all different kinds of love. And maybe that's part of why it's not such a driving force or as direct a driving force or vibrating force in our beings as the expression of sex is. A burning desire for fame, power, or financial gain or money is number 3. Number 4 is music. Number 5 is friendship between either those of the same sex or those of the opposite sex. Number 6 is a mastermind alliance based upon the harmony of 2 or more people who ally themselves for spiritual or temporal advancement. Number 7, mutual suffering, such as that experienced by people who are persecuted. Number 8, autosuggestion. Number 9, fear. And number 10, narcotics and alcohol. These are all different mind stimuli that can be used to increase our vibration of thought. Now, a couple of these aren't very healthy, right, or very good. I would say fear and narcotics and alcohol are probably not good choices, although some very famous people especially in the areas of art, and authors and things have used alcohol and drugs to create some incredible masterpieces. Now, I don't think that's the genius way or the way to tap into genius for most of us, because the vast majority of people that overuse alcohol or overuse drugs definitely would be described as failures. But there are the rare exception of people that succeed by using those things to stimulate their mind and their creative process. I, again, would contend there's much more positive ways. Any of the other 8 are better to stimulate your mind than alcohol, narcotics, or fear. I mean, yeah, we do a lot, and fear will cause us to act, but is it causing us to, well, we're acting in our own best interest, but is it in the path of success and what we want, or is it just moving us away from something that we're afraid of and that we don't want? Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. I would say that now in this day and age, remember Napoleon Hill, when he wrote this book, was in 1937 after 25 years of study, but that still put him in a very different socioeconomical age than we're in now. I mean, I would say that anything that we're discussing here that says men also applies to women. And I think it's really interesting. My daughter and I were discussing yesterday a book that she had come across that at first I thought, okay, really? But the contention was by the author that the equality of men and women now is destroying marriage as we know it, because women are going into marriages with this competitive spirit instead of a cooperative spirit. Now, I agree with that part of it, but the statistic that she shared in the book was that 70% of divorces nowadays are initiated by women, and that isn't explained by feminism or whatever. And interesting, I'm probably going to have to get the book now because I am intrigued by it, but my whole point of that is that everything that we're saying about men and that Napoleon Hill wrote about men is really true about human beings and women as well. So if you're a woman and I'm talking to you right now, don't think that this doesn't apply to you. It totally applies to you. Just think, spouse, husband, or significant other, because we're not all married to the same sex partners these days. I am not married. I'm just divorced. But just an aside, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The principles and topics apply no matter what. So we talked about the 10 things that help stimulate your mind. And the whole purpose of wanting to transmute sexual energy is because we want to use our mind to tap into infinite intelligence so that we can more quickly and easily create the success that we want in our life, in whatever area of our life that we're working on. That's the whole point and premise of this topic. The topic's really not about sex, so I shouldn't be nervous to talk about it. It's really more about transforming energy and tapping into our sixth sense and universal intelligence or infinite intelligence or the one mind, whatever you want to call it, but it's the thing that all of us have the ability to tap into that's bigger than ourselves, that will help us create whatever it is we want in our lives faster and easier than we ever dreamed possible. And that's where he talks about the whole being able to tap into genius in this chapter. And a couple chapters ago, we talked about, I think it was systemic creativity versus, systemic knowledge or something versus creative knowledge. And the only way to tap into, or not specialized knowledge, I can't remember what it was, but it was something, the process of discovering things or creating things without actually really creating anything new. It's just combining parts of things that already exist, existing knowledge and things that you have in your subconscious already, and putting those things together. But sometimes when you're trying to create or do something, there's still a missing piece or two of that in the process. And the only way to tap into and figure out what those missing pieces are, because you don't have them in you already, is to tap into something outside of yourself, like infinite intelligence, that then gives you those ideas via hunches or dreams. I get a lot of my great ideas or things that I need to work on through the dreaming process. I'll ask myself a question before I go to bed because I don't know the answer to it. I don't have it in me already. And I will wake up with that answer. I've been doing that for decades. I would encourage you, if you've never tried that, if you've got a problem or a situation or an obstacle or a process that you're trying to figure out and you haven't been able to think yourself into the solution or the answer, ask yourself it in the form of a question and be clear and specific about that question before you go to bed, and see if you don't wake up with the answer. And if you don't the first night, if you do it a couple of days in a row, you will get the answer. The answer will come to you either during the day as a flash or as a memory of a dream or something that you woke up, and then look for the signs of the answer, because I guarantee it will be being given to you from the infinite intelligence somewhere, and you just have to be open to seeing that answer when it comes to you. So Napoleon Hill talks about a definition of genius is a man who has discovered how to increase the vibration of thoughts to the point where he can freely communicate with sources of knowledge not available through the ordinary rate of vibration of thought. And I know this is kind of woo-woo and above or different than what we've been taught to think. And there's so much information on this. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take Napoleon Hill's word for it. Just Google, if you're doubting or not believing this, Google emotions, feelings, thoughts, vibrational energy, law of attraction. It goes by a million different names. Infinite intelligence, universal knowledge, universal wisdom, whatever you need to study and look into to help you increase your belief in the possibility that you can actually do this. I am 100% sure you can actually do this. I know I've done it and I continue to do it. And if I can do it, you can sure do it. But usually once you read this statement, it gets you wanting to ask questions like, how may one communicate with the sources of knowledge or the source of knowledge which are not available through ordinary vibration of thought? Well, how do you do that? And then the next question you might come up with is, are there known sources of knowledge which are available only to geniuses? And he calls them genii, but I'm going to call them geniuses because I think that's a more common term nowadays. And if so, what are these sources and exactly how may they be reached? And this chapter is all about how they may be reached. How do you tap into your sixth sense? Because it's your sixth sense that has the ability to directly communicate with infinite intelligence, other sources of knowledge. And infinite intelligence is, of course, the major other source of knowledge. Genius is developed through the sixth sense. Creative imagination is developed through the sixth sense, or comes to you in flashes or ideas or visions or dreams or thoughts or ahas through the sixth sense, through your sixth sense. You want to be able to develop that. The faculty of creative imagination is the direct link between the finite mind of man, our mind, and infinite intelligence. Between our subconscious and infinite intelligence. Between our subconscious and then the flash is our conscious, recognizing the message in our subconscious that has come from infinite intelligence. The desire cannot and should not be, this is about sex energy still. We'll come back to that. So ideas or hunches or flashes can come to us from infinite intelligence. They can come to us from our subconscious mind, where every sense, every experience, everything we've ever been impressed upon us or thought resides in our brain. From the mind of some other person who has just released the thought or picture of the idea or concept through conscious thought, or from other person's subconscious storehouse. So what this tells us is our sixth sense can actually tap into other people's subconscious. That's a rather new thought to me and for me, and so I will definitely be exploring that one further. When brain action has been stimulated through one or more of the 10 mind stimulants, it has the effect of lifting the individual far above the horizon of ordinary thought and permits him to envision distance, scope, and quality of thoughts not available on the lower plane, such as that occupied while one is engaged in the solution of the problem of business and professional routine. So what that's saying is, as you're going about your daily thinking and your everyday thinking and your business and your routine daily life, that's your normal operating frequency, and solutions and creative things that you need to find, missing process steps, aren't generally found at that level of thinking. You need to raise your level of thinking and raise your vibration of thinking. Sorry, talking about sexual transmutation makes me thirsty. Bulletproof coffee. People who have keen imaginations. It is a fact well known to people who have keen imaginations that their best ideas come through so-called hunches. One of America's most successful and best-known financiers followed the habit of closing his eyes for 2 or 3 minutes before making a decision. That is actually a really incredible strategy, because closing your eyes and focusing within allows you to tap into that higher intelligence just like that, or sometimes it takes people 2 or 3 minutes. Depending on what I'm trying to decide, sometimes it might take me more than a minute or two. But closing your eyes, or one really famous businessman actually created actually it was Dr. Gates was his name, and he was a scientist, and he actually has in the patent office over 200 useful patents that he would sit for ideas for different companies, and they would hire him, and he had this dark, silent, quiet room that he would go sit in and turn off the lights, had a little table with a notebook and a pen, and he would just close his eyes, sit in that dark room, and think. And that's when creative ideas would come to him. And as a result of that process, he created hundreds of patents and hundreds of useful ideas, and actually made his living then doing this for corporations and for other companies, sitting for ideas and getting them ideas. A better definition of a genius is a man who has discovered how to increase the vibration of thought to the point where he can freely communicate with sources of knowledge not available through the ordinary rate of vibration of thought. Again, that's what we were discussing. Fortunate indeed is the person who has discovered how to give sex emotion an outlet through some form of creative effort, for he has, or she has, by that discovery, lifted himself or herself to the status of a genius. A relatively small number of people use, with deliberation and purpose, a forethought, the facility of creative imagination. Okay, so that means not very many people use creative imagination on purpose. Those who use this facility voluntarily and with understanding of its functions are geniuses. The great artists, writers, musicians, and poets become great because they acquire the habit of relying upon the still small voice which speaks from within through the faculty of creative imagination. Again, it talks about, and Napoleon Hill talks about, I'm going to encourage you to, if you don't have the book, download the PDF, read the chapters. I hope, if nothing else, you're getting out of this brief summary of the process the desire to go and actually read the book on your own, or learn more on any of these topics and steps on your own. And he goes on to say that sex energy is the creative energy of all geniuses. Again, because it's the most high vibrating energy. Gives a lot of examples in the book about who this has been successful for and who's used this successfully. Now, the desire for sexual expression is by far the strongest and most impelling of all of the human emotions. And for this very reason, this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action, other than that of a physical expression, may raise one to the status of genius. Ideas received through the creative faculty are much more reliable for the reasons that they come from sources more reliable than any which are available to the reasoning faculty of the mind. And what Napoleon shares with us here is that our experiences are our experiences, but our experiences are impacted by, again, like I mentioned earlier in this little broadcast, they're impacted by our past experiences and by what we know and have experienced in the past. Whereas if we tap into the infinite intelligence or other sources of knowledge, they're not prejudiced by our personal experiences here as a human being. Yeah, it says here, the majority of men or women never learn that the urge of sex has other possibilities which far transcend in importance that of mere physical expression. I would contend that that is 100% true. Most people never figure out that sexual energy and sexual energy does not have to be expressed physically. It can be transformed into other types of energy and thought and emotion and feelings that are much more powerful than anything you can imagine. He does have a whole section in here where he talks about men, because the book was written at a time where it was just men that he studied, really don't reach greatness or a lot of success until their 40s or 50s, usually after their 50s, because they're dispensing and dispelling all their good sexual energy physically, and they're not letting it transmute into other things. And if you're curious about that, you can go ahead and read about that. The mere possession of this energy is not sufficient to produce a genius. The energy must be transmuted from desire for the physical contact into some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of genius. So again, he's saying, yeah, most people aren't going to figure this out, and most of them that do figure it out by accident. The world is ruled and the destiny of civilizations is established by the human emotions. This is so important. People are influenced in their actions not by reason so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not by cold reason. You may or may not have heard people buy for emotions or feelings, and they justify their purchase and their decision with facts and thoughts and features and whatever else. We are all emotional-driven beings, feeling-driven beings, and we do everything to achieve different vibrations of feeling, usually higher and higher and higher vibrations of feeling. But there's a lot of different ways to stimulate the mind and transmute energy and sexual energy, for example, in a sales setting. Salesmen, the smartest sales manager that's hiring a salesman is going to look for somebody that's attractive, has high sexual energy, meaning that they're attractive, and they know how to transmute that sexual energy or transform that high sexual energy, not in a physical form, but into an energy form of emotion and feeling that helps them to sell more of whatever it is that they're trying to sell. And that can be done through or transformed through and demonstrated to other people by a handshake. It can be demonstrated by your tone of voice. It can be demonstrated by positive energy. People are attracted to positive energy. It can be demonstrated by the vibration of thought that you give off, like in your aura or your vibes. I mean, it's kind of a woo-woo thing, but it's actually true. Vibes are vibes. We all give off different vibrations and senses of energy and positivity or negativity. And then another way that high sexual energy is demonstrated is through body adornment or your presentation. Do you wear a lot of jewelry? Do you fix your hair? Do you care about what you're wearing? Okay, I'm not a good example of this, sorry, but my kids are, as a matter of fact, an excellent example of that. I, on the other hand, am not. But what you're looking for in yourself and in other people is actually personal magnetism. You're looking for personal magnetism and attraction so that you can be good at whatever it is that you're trying to do as you're sharing whatever it is you're trying to share with other people. People are influenced in their actions not by reason so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not by cold reason. And I'm going to read that again because that is so critical to your success, to my success, to our success in anything that we want, is to know that this is how, not just other people, but how we work, how our lives work. People are influenced in their actions not by reason so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not by cold reason. think I shared that 3 times now. That's how important that statement is. Those who find it difficult to summon willpower sufficient for transmutation may gradually acquire this ability. Though this requires willpower, the reward for the practice is more than worth the effort. So if you are inclined to use up all of that sexual energy by physically demonstrating and participating in sexual activities, physical sexual activities, you can, via strong will and trying and effort, teach yourself to transmute some of that energy to other forms, not just physical forms of expression. But it's going to be hard. But if it's hard, even if it's hard, it's way worth it because it's such a powerful force to use to create whatever you want. No man can avail himself of the forces of his creative imagination while dissipating them. So basically, if you're having sex all the time, physically, instead of transmuting some of that sexual energy to create what you want, you're not going to be able to create what you want as fast as if you were transmuting some of that energy and not expending it all through physical actions. I think I said that in the nicest way possible. There's lots of examples in here of men who were successful because they were backed by and doing things to support and for the love of a woman. Again, this works in reverse. It doesn't have anything to do with sexuality. It has only to do with wanting and providing for another person, another human being. It might be that well, that wouldn't be sex transmutation, so never mind. I was going to say it might be providing for your kids, but that's different. That's love, but it's different. Love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving men to heights of superachievement. When combined, these 3 emotions may lift one to an altitude of genius. And he gives examples of people, and men in particular in this, who have combined the sex energy, the love, and romance together, because those 3 things together make a man almost unstoppable, a woman unstoppable. A woman who is in a loving relationship, so sex, love, and romance is part of that relationship, just like a man can do incredible things and be lifted to the level of genius. When any negative emotions present itself in one's mind, it can be transmuted into a positive or constructive emotion by the simple procedure of changing one's thought. I know this seems really simple, but I do it every day. I do it all the time. A lot of people do it all the time. Whenever a negative thought pops into your head, as soon as you notice it, change your thought. Change it to something positive. Let me give you an example. If I am having physical pain, like my hips hurt because of the cold weather or whatever, I've got a lot of things that trigger hip pain. If I participate in something that triggers hip pain or something that's outside of my control, like cold weather and my hips hurt, I can be thinking about how my hips hurt, or I can transmute that and I can change my thought and think about something else that's working in my life or going on in my life that's really nice. Sorry about the dogs. So that's an example of that. But we all have that ability to instantly change what we're thinking about. And if we change what we're thinking about, we're changing what we're focusing on. If we change what we're thinking about and focusing on, we change our feelings that are associated with what we're thinking. So it's that easy to change from a negative to a positive thought. There's no other road to genius than through voluntary self-effort. And that's so true. The only way you're going to develop these skills and this creative genius is by putting forth the effort and deciding that you're going to develop them, and then do whatever it takes for you personally to practice these things and develop those skills. He does also talk about and give some examples of how love is always a positive thing, but that you cannot expect that love will necessarily come and stay forever. It just doesn't. It's transient. Love changes all the time, but that doesn't mean that the love that you felt is any less valuable or real once it's gone. You just have to accept and enjoy love when you have it, and then not get all bent out of shape if it goes away and if it leaves you. And know that you're not just ever going to have one love experience in your life. You're going to probably have many. The amount of people that find their soulmate, get married, and stay together forever is the vast majority, or the vast minority of people, especially in this day and age. It's more likely, kind of like jobs. They say that the average person when I was in college, they said the average person would have 12 different careers or jobs in their life. Now, most of us will not have 12 different significant others in our life, but the thought is the same. Jobs come and go. People come and go in our lives for a reason, to teach us something or to show us something about ourselves. And then they move on and we move on. The major force of love may bend itself and pass away, like a fire which has burned itself out, but it leaves behind indelible marks of evidence that it passed that way. Its departure often prepares the human heart for a still greater love. Totally true. The emotion of love brings out and develops the artistic and the aesthetic nature of man or woman. It leaves its impression upon one's very soul, even after the fire has been subdued by time and circumstance. And so that is the crux of the mystery of sex transmutation. And I thank you for bearing with me as I talk about a topic that is obviously not comfortable for me, but very, very powerful. And it's been very, very powerful in my life, and I know it will be very powerful in your life. That's it for today. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.